Welcome, everyone, to Latter Daily Digest. We honor creators, and today we're going to have a special virtual tour of the Holy Land. And Steve is joining me as collaborator on this. Welcome, Steve.
Fellow collaborator, how's it going? Always great to see my homie Gene Judson over at the later Daily Digest. And just so you know, that we will be collaborating and putting this on both of our channels, both Mormon Book Reviews and Latter Daily Digest. And thank you, Gene, for inviting me to be a collaborator.
That's right. And our special guest is Kevin, who has run some tours. How many years of doing tours have you done?
Oh, about 15.
So 15. So you're just starting out.
Just learning. Yeah.
Yeah.
15 years of Holy Land tours. Is that correct?
Part of it has been Holy Lands. The other one has been as far as going down to Peru. Like he'll be in Machu Picchu in just a few weeks. Again, we run tours down there, but everywhere between Peru and Petra, and everywhere.
Okay.
That's right. And I'm afraid of traveling, so I like virtual tours so that I don't have to leave my house, we'll say. And so we'll do one with Machu Picchu someday, because that'd be kind of cool.
Peru's
so we'll start off by presenting. You're going to do some slides, and I'll make this full screen in a moment, but give us the start of your presentation.
Well, I am glad to be here, and we were talking before about the possibility of what would be the advantage of maybe getting a virtual tour here. One of the things that I found, especially since October 6th and everything that happened coming out of Gaza, is that people have always been a little bit nervous to go to Israel. And even before all of that happened, people would say, do you feel safe in Israel? And I've never felt unsafe in Israel. In fact, a lot of times as we're bringing people in and we're coming across the top of the Galilee, and you think you're in Idaho. It's just a breadbasket. It is safe. It's comfortable. And so people have always, a lot of times, been wary to go, and yet once you're there, you just really get a sense that you're going to be taken care of. Like if you were going to fly into Tel Aviv today, and let's say that I was leaving out of the DFW airport, there will be somebody from El Al, maybe Mossad, that just kind of comes and walks up to you and just, can I get to know who you are? And they want to know who's flying into Israel. They know who's flying into Israel. They're very, very aware of that. They're very security conscious. So that's my way of saying Israel's a safe place to be. Which sounds strange. Sometimes we see the headlines. We don't think it is.
Right. Hundreds of flights in Tel Aviv every day. And not one of them has flipped over, because I think earlier.
I just saw the video of that thing. That was
an airplane flipped over in Toronto. Was that where it was?
Yeah.
Somewhere.
Yep.
So anyway, go ahead and let's start the show. Make a full screen for us, and we'll just go ahead and start. What are we looking at right now? That was the Dome of the Rock.
So here's what I want to start with. This is actually I know. Can we see my little cursor here?
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Good.
So this is in Salt Lake.
Yeah. This is the Sea of Galilee from the air, and so I want to show you that some of the things, if you are a Christian and you study the Bible, this is where so much of the life of the Savior plays out, and so. If you look right at the top here, this little green belt right here at the top, that would be the Mount of Beatitudes. Well, not Mount of Beatitudes. This is where the Sermon on the Mount and the Sermon on the Plain took place. The Catholic Church has done a beautiful job of maintaining this area. There's some great places. We do classes up here. Now, if we work our way just coming down the coast a little bit here, you see there's like three little areas here. One of these is Capernaum. Capernaum is this guy right there. This one down here is Tiberias, Roman city. And then just off here, a little bit off to the side here is Nazareth, sits over here. But when we bring people in, one of the first things we do is we come up over the top of the Sea of Galilee, and we come over to this area here near the Golan Heights, because we want to go to a couple of places. This first place is Tel Dan. At the time that, right after the King Saul and then Solomon, King David, the kings, when they break up, we get the dueling kings of Jeroboam and Rehoboam. This was a temple built by Jeroboam for the northern tribes. So you can actually go up there and see this temple that was supposed to rival what Solomon had built down in Jerusalem. But Tel Dan is one of those archaeological sites. It's fascinating to see another temple in Jerusalem or in Israel. Another place that we like to get people to is this is an artist's rendition of what first century Nazareth would have looked like. So we think there was only just a few hundred people living in Nazareth, right along the slope there, and then right at the top of this up here. This is where we think the synagogue was that the Savior is going to preach Luke 4 in, and they're going to try and throw him into the rock quarry. The rock quarry, if we get, this is modern day Nazareth. This whole area up here, guys, is just rocky. The Nazareth was not a forest. When we kind of laugh a little bit when we talk about Jesus as a carpenter. He was a carpenter only because first he was a stonemason. What Nazareth was known for was its stones and its stone area. And so a lot of times we will come and spend a couple of nights in Nazareth and go up to this rocky outcrop where they tried to throw Jesus out of the synagogue and onto the rock quarry. But here's the other place that we like to be able to go to. If we go back up for just a second, this area over here on the complete right-hand side of the Sea of Galilee, in ancient times, first century, it was known as the Decapolis. There were 10 Roman Gentile cities here. In the middle of all of this was a little place where there was a temple of Pan that was up in this rocky outcropping here above my head here. And this is the area known as Caesarea Philippi. On the left, you can see the stream that flows out of that cave. Caesarea Philippi is important because this is the place that again Jesus will bring all of the disciples from the Capernaum side of the Sea of Galilee, bring them across the water, bring them specifically to where this temple of Pan was. You can see some little what's left of some of the ruins up above my head up here. But Caesarea Philippi is where the Savior then turns to Peter and he says, "Who do men say I am?" And Peter says, "Well, some say you're this, some say you're that." And then he says, "Well, who do you say I am?" "Well, you're the Christ." Okay. And then he says, basically, on this rock of understanding, I'm going to build my church. And then he says, and the gates of hell shall not prevail against it. Well, the little cave here to the left of my head here, it was known to the temple of Pan that sat there as the gates of hell. And so when he's talking about the fact that this paganness is not going to prevail against what it is that we are establishing, and he's going to say, yeah, that's, and he wanted the disciples to stand right there. And so a lot of times in Israel, you're walking around, you wonder where Jesus walked. This is one of those places we absolutely know that Jesus stood, because he came to Caesarea Philippi. Scriptures attest that he did, specifically with an object lesson in mind, to teach his disciples.
That's what I was going to say. Maybe one of the first object lessons in history.
Yeah, and oh man, he was good at it. When in going to these sites, you see how the Savior was using literally. I'll show you a couple of others, using object lessons to teach people. So a lot of times then we will swing around from Caesarea Philippi and we will come over to where the Sermon on the Mount took place. This is that area right across, right at the top of the Sea of Galilee. You can see looking out across the sea there, the lake.
Sort of looking south.
Uh-huh. Yep.
Yeah. So just for reference, the Sea of Galilee is about 15 miles across at its widest and about maybe 25 miles north and south, I think, or whatever.
Yeah, and we think in the time of Jesus it was a little larger than that, because obviously they're using this is the only freshwater lake they've got. So they were using that. But Capernaum is to your right, and then down the coastline a little bit. But this is the Sermon on the Mount, we think takes place in this area, as well as the Sermon on the Plain, because this whole area is just a plain, flat area leading down into that lake. So you can picture all the boats coming across and parking themselves there to listen to Jesus' sermon, standing here. So let's see. And then if you're still coming around the side of the lake, we're then going to get to Capernaum. When we take groups through here, people love coming to Capernaum. The little turtle-looking shaped thing in the middle overlooks some of the ruins that are there, and we think that it is protecting part of Peter's home. And then this white area right here to the right, this is a Roman synagogue that was built during that time for the Jews. And then you can still see all the land out there. We think that Jesus had a home there. We think that he brought his mother from Nazareth after he was threatened in Nazareth and brought here. And so this will be their base of operations for almost 3 years. Peter's native house was here, as well as Jesus' house was here. Okay. And then, this is what the synagogue looks like, ruin-wise from the inside. The Capernaum. That's Capernaum. So, all right. I have to say that one of the real joys of taking groups out is that people want to. We take them out on this little boat out on the Sea of Galilee and kind of pedal around a little bit out there. I teach a class out there.
And they want you to walk on water? Yeah.
It's not walkable. but you can see Tiberias behind them up there on the side of the hill. But funny story, one of the last times that I had a group out there, a lot of times what will happen is we'll teach a class, and then they will actually teach you to do the Hava Nagila, Jewish dance on the boat, which is a lot of fun. And so I taught my class, and the captain, and I turned to the captain and says, okay, they're ready to dance. And he says, wait, we have to sing the song. And I said, what song? He says, the song. And I said, what song? And he says, na 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 na. Oh, Master, this tempest is raising. Yes, you must sing that song. So he wanted us to sing the song that everybody else, I guess, sings on that thing, but the captain knew it well, so it's kind of fun.
Now, does the captain say the sea ever does get waves high enough to toss to and fro a ship? But I guess if it's a fishing ship, it'd be small.
Yeah, well, and this is like being on Bear Lake in Utah. It really is. Bear Lake's about the same size. It's just not that big. So part of what happens when you go to Israel is that you're seeing the scenes, and it's not exactly how you pictured in your head. And so it is. You're not seeing 10-foot waves on the Sea of Galilee. But you can in Cana. You can stop off at Peter's Fish and get fish, white fish that they pull out of the lake. They call Peter's Fish. So anyway,
Wow.
yeah, it's good stuff.
So it's possible that a lot of stories were embellished by Hellenistic fans of Jesus. We'll just say
over and over. Oh yeah. Okay, another place that I like to bring people to.
I had a quick question for you. Go back to that previous slide. So, do you know a gentleman by the name of Chris Granzow? Because I think his company is the one that runs most of the boats on the Sea of Galilee now.
I didn't know that. No.
Yeah, he's a guest I had in my program right after the war broke out in Israel, and I guess they run all the boats now, or they're like one of the leading ones for that. But it's an evangelical Christian group that is kind of involved in that. So
I'll try to provide a link to that show, Steve.
Yeah, I'll provide a link to it. Yeah.
And they do a good job. I mean, this for a lot of people, this is one of the highlights of the trip is to be able to get out there on the sea and see what that looks like. So yeah, good for them. And and for just a second, talking about kind of the safety of Israel and stuff like that, we have to remember that Gaza is way down on the coast, and a small little area in the corner. And when we're up here in the Upper Galilee, we're hundreds of miles away from any of that. And so it just seems so distant from that. And yet all of I get messages from my guides in Nazareth and Jerusalem, Jimmy's Olive Wood place, a great place to go in Jerusalem, and they're just dying from tourism. In fact, one of my guides has been picking fruit since the war started, and he's one of the best guides I've ever seen. So anyway, another place that we like to take people to is right at the base of the Sea of Galilee is an ancient Jewish city, or Roman city by the name of Bethshan. And it's just a really nicely well preserved Roman city. You can see the amphitheater there by my head. Off to the right there is where a lot of the Roman baths are. And before that, it was actually a Greek city as well. So it's a pretty ancient city, Bethshan. Okay, but right at the base of the Sea of Galilee, you get this transition now between the Upper Galilee with all of its fruit and vegetables and just the breadbasket of the Middle East, and then the bottom half of Israel, which is Judean desert. Well, right, the dividing line between the north and the Judean desert is this area right here, and this is actually and we'll park. We do a park and look at an overlook on this. This is the Jericho Road. The city you see there on the right over here, that's Jericho. Okay, coming up this wash right here is the Jericho Road, and so it's going to be to this area that this will be the last week of Jesus' life. He's going to be staying in Jericho. He's going to come up this road, going to come up to Bethany, and then he's going to do the triumphal entry down into Jerusalem. But the Jericho Road is also famously known for the parable of.
Oh, isn't this the Good Samaritan?
The Good Samaritan. Yeah. This is what he's referring to. It's where the Good Samaritan takes place, is on the Jericho Road. Okay, and just fun place.
Another object lesson.
He did it all the time. Okay, now if we're coming down into ancient Jerusalem, I want to just show you this map real quickly. This dotted circle all the way around kind of gives you an idea of the current city of Jerusalem, and this area here. But I want to point out a couple of things. Over here, we have the temple of Herod as it sat. If you come around to the base right here, this is where the current Wailing Wall is. It sits right there. This was the ancient city of David coming down this way, where the Sadducees built their houses. We're up on this upper city. If you come around here, this is where a lot of the city is now. Now, the ancient city was right here, which puts where we think Jesus was crucified at Golgotha, right here. We have a song that says there's a green hill far away outside the city wall. Well, Golgotha was outside the city wall. And we think the tomb of Joseph of Arimathea was right close by here. Now, this area right here is now covered, and I'll show you this in a second. This is covered by the Church of the Holy Sepulchre, the Catholic Church, because they believe Golgotha and the tomb were right here. I'll show you where traditional Christianity places the tomb and Golgotha in just a second. But inside that area is where that church is, and it's a pretty interesting place to be. So keep that in mind. One other thing, and I'll show you in just a second. We're going to run out of time before too long. Here on the right, where it says the city of David, underneath this is where there is Hezekiah's tunnel that we can hike, and I'll show you that in just a second. Okay. BYU built, if you go outside, we see Antonio's fortress, and you go up against this Mount of Olives. BYU in the early 80s was able to construct on the Mount of Olives the BYU Jerusalem Center. And it didn't come without controversy. There was such a fear that there would be evangelizing coming from the BYU Jerusalem Center. It is since now, as they have seen that we've honored that and we're respectful of all of that, and the architecture of that is such that if you can see over here, this is the view of the inside the chapel of the BYU Jerusalem Center, and it looks out over the city of Jerusalem. And on a regular basis, this has become the performing place to be. If you're any performer in the Middle East, you want to perform at Mormon University, because Mormon University is the place. It's spectacular at night, but people want to come from far away. And we have at Mormon University, we have the second largest pipe organ in all of the Middle East. Okay. I was going to play you an organ thing, but I think we're running out of time here. But that's another view of it. And then from there, up from the Mount of Olives, we tend to like to do the overlook of Jerusalem. You can see the Dome of the Rock in the middle, one of Islam's holiest sites. The ancient city of David is coming to your left, comes down the hill here. And then this long wall running along here is a wall partly made up of, built by Herod, partly by the Crusaders, partly Byzantine, and partly Crusaders. And so it's a very long wall. And then you get all of the graves and the Kidron Valley in front of it. Arthur Schindler is buried there. Okay. Pretty spectacular sight, especially at night. Now, am I boring you so far?
No, so far so good.
Okay, good. All right. I think one of the things that people actually enjoy the most when we're going is a trip through Hezekiah's tunnel. And Hezekiah's tunnel was built by Hezekiah. It says in 2 Kings, in Hezekiah's reign, how he made a pool and the tunnel by which he brought water into the city. Assyrians were coming to attack. The only water was in the Kidron Valley and running along here. And so they were going to be under siege. They built a tunnel that runs underneath the city, and it brings the water from the Gihon Springs all the way down over here to the Pool of Siloam. And that pool is still we can still walk in it. In fact, some idea, it runs for about almost a mile. The water still runs through the middle of it.
All right. Smile in the video. Okay.
Okay,
Right, here we go.
And we march people down through there. If you're a little bit claustrophobic, this will get you. But that's spectacular, and that's just a lot of fun. And then just before you get to the end, there is this plaque, and what it says is that we can hear them tapping on the other side. They started to build the tunnel from both sides, and they ran into each other right near the end of it, and there's a plaque there that they left. So very cool.
So that was around 700 BC.
It was, yeah, and it's still there. Isaiah was upstairs while they were building that. Okay, one of the suggestions, guys, that I wanted to make to anybody that is going to Jerusalem, and that is, I work very hard with groups that I want to arrive in Jerusalem, and specifically at the Wailing Wall, at the Western Wall. I want to get there on Thursday mornings, because on Thursday mornings is where all of the bar mitzvahs descend from all over, and there are dozens and dozens of these bar mitzvahs all going on simultaneously at the wall. And that usually consists of having a young boy who's on his way to bar mitzvah. It's like this little guy in the blue shirt in the middle, and there will be a band in front of him, usually clarinet and drums and shofars blasting, and usually there's a little chuppah, covering that goes over like a mobile tent, and the boy after boy after boy after boy is going to come and just celebrate, and the families are all there, and it's just the most, I can't even begin to tell you guys just what a joyous experience that is, to be at the Wailing Wall on a Thursday with all these bar mitzvahs. Unbelievable. There's a place I could choose in all the world on a Thursday morning, that would be it. It's just that cool. So,
And on a typical tour, one tour would have all these places that you've shown us so far?
Yeah, we're going to spend a week going from the top of the Sea of Galilee down through Jerusalem, past Masada, all the way down to the Red Sea. And then we'll spend another couple of days coming up the Jordan side of that and go to Petra and Wadi Rum and some of the areas that are in Jordan. So it ends up being about 10 days. Okay. There are a few other places that we can stop. We have these. We know that Jesus taught near the Pillars of Solomon that were at the far end of the temple complex, and that gets us about where it was. The entrance of that in those days was right here, right in the middle, and so these are the temple steps that they came up, and we will generally do a class there. Sometimes we share it with other Christian groups. That's pretty good times. Okay. A couple of other things I wanted to make sure that we got in here. The LDS Church in its very early days, Joseph Smith sent Orson Hyde all the way to Jerusalem to dedicate it for the return of the Jews. Kind of a pretentious kind of thing for this little sect sitting in Ohio, to send him all the way there. He does, and Orson Hyde comes all the way to the top of this hill that's at the base of the Mount of Olives, and he dedicates the land, and this has now been turned into the Orson Hyde Memorial Park that actually sits in the Garden of Gethsemane. The Garden of Gethsemane takes in this entire area, including the Orson Hyde Gardens, where people can go. And so we go up there and have a devotional there. And below, right down here in the middle, is the traditional gardens of Gethsemane. I'm going to swing past the Pool of Bethesda. The traditional site of the Last Supper. That is not really, because these were all built by the Crusaders in 1200 AD. We think that when this is sitting down in the valley in the Kidron Valley, with the Temple Mount to your right and the Mount of Olives to the left, and so this becomes this valley in between. And we really think, and one of the beliefs is among most scholars, is that Psalm 20, the 23rd Psalm that talks about, yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, that it might have had some reference to the Savior making his way the night of the Last Supper, walking through the Kidron Valley. And this valley of the shadow of death has so many graves along here, and that he's walking to Gethsemane through the valley. Garden of Gethsemane, where we get a chance to have a class in there. Now, one of the questions that comes up, though, is where exactly do we think Jesus prayed? And this is the traditional site of where they think in the Garden of Gethsemane. Within the Garden of Gethsemane, I have another site that a number of first century scholars now believe may have been a more possible site. And believe it or not, if you look at the base of the garden here, down here by the little red church, is a little Catholic church. And you go down underneath the Catholic church and you find this. This is a first century grotto that sits underneath the Catholic church in the Garden of Gethsemane. And all of these little stars were made in the first century. And we know that within this little grotto area was an olive press. And if Jesus was going to need a place to pray and be away from everything else, this grotto, believed by many in the Catholic Church, certainly this Catholic Church, believes that this is where Jesus came to pray, with the disciples out in the garden keeping watch, and he's able to have some privacy down inside this grotto. And so they've erected, they have a little chapel down in there. And it's just, this little grotto is like one of my favorite places. You have this little altar here. If you can see the figures underneath, you've got the disciples going to sleep. You know, Peter and James couldn't stay awake any longer, so they're snoozing underneath this little altar.
It is a cool little place.
Oh, it's a very cool little place. Yeah, and you go in there, and it just has such an unusual feel that people really love. I mean, we want to go to the traditional Garden of Gethsemane, but then we get down in this little grotto area, and it is just very, very cool.
That's right. You have to match the famous painting at least first.
You got it. But what else can you do? Okay. Traditional site of Golgotha for Christians. Again, I'm watching the clock real closely, and then the traditional tomb, the garden tomb for Jesus. So questions on any of this so far?
Well, first of all, the garden tomb was identified in the 19th century by, I believe, an Anglican the Church of England person. And so that's become the kind of the evangelical Protestant
It
tomb.
is. See, they don't
As
like.
opposed to the whole,
See, here's the Church of the Holy
Sepulchre.
Sepulchre.
Right.
That they like. That this is too noisy. It's just not good enough.
Yep.
You're right, Steve. So they prefer this site.
It's a very Protestant-looking gravesite.
Very much. Oh yeah, beautiful place, sweet spirit. I love taking people there, and it's a little bit of a downer to go. Yeah, but this wasn't identified till the 1900s. This site is probably more likely. Yeah, okay. People don't like that so much. That's what the inside of the Church of the Holy Sepulchre looks like. And people will stand in line to get down inside that area. And then a couple last things here. For me, one of the things that I look forward to when we get to Jerusalem, almost more than anything else, is getting out to Masada. If you know the story of Masada, as Jerusalem is falling in 70 AD, or 66 AD, the Zealots are streaming to this site down in the Judean desert where Herod had built a fortress. And you can see successive little fortress areas here where he could look out over this thing. And the Zealots coming out of Qumran and out of Jerusalem overcome the guards that are protecting Herod's site here. And this is the Jewish Alamo, where they're able to hold the Romans off for years. But if you guys can see right here on the right, this little
that's the ramp that the Romans built, right?
That's the Roman ramp. It is, and it's still there. And imagine they build it, and then they built like siege engines, like you saw in Lord of the Rings. These big wooden things that they're pushing up the Roman ramp. They get up here. These guys are lobbing rocks and everything from right over here. And then the Romans light some torches to try and burn down the fortress on this side. Over here, the flames come back and start the ramp engine on fire, but ultimately the whole thing is burned. And then it falls. And then the Romans go home for the night to get ready on that. Next morning, they're going to come in and conquer Masada, and this will be the last battle in the Jewish revolt. And they get up there to find out that everybody has suicided. And that whole story of Masada is quite touching. What you can't see is off to the left there's a military base, Air Force base, and the planes take off from the Air Force base, and they circle around, and then they will wiggle their wings over Masada, because the motto for them is that Masada will not fall again, and so they pay homage ultimately to Masada. So, and then one of the other places we like to take people is to Qumran, where the Dead Sea Scrolls were found.
Right.
Anyway, that's probably plenty, isn't it? I don't know what questions you might have about that, guys.
Well, first of all, make sure to Gene or Kevin, why don't you pull up your website, and then we can share that with the audience. So if people are interested in attending these tours, that they can.
Okay. Yeah. Let me.
And we'll make sure we have links in the descriptions of both of our videos. Yeah, very interesting stuff. Just to see that this is a real place where actual historical events happened. And I know for a lot of people who make these trips to Jerusalem, it often can be life-changing for them to walk where Jesus walked and be in those places. And for some people, Kevin, I hear that they sometimes have very emotional experiences and spiritual experiences when they're there.
One of the things I will kind of finish with, we were walking a group into the Garden Tomb area, and we were kind of excited to be there. And a bus pulled up behind us of African Christians. And there was about 50 of them. And as soon as they got off that bus, they started singing in unison. these African songs, and they were just so over the moon. They were here, they had arrived in Jerusalem, and they were coming to the Garden Tomb. And while we're trying to go through the Garden Tomb, these guys go off to another side, and they are still singing and dancing and everything. You look at their joy, and you're just thinking, you know what? No matter what religion you are, you're going to go to Jerusalem, and then you're going to come back and want to be better. It just inspires that kind of pilgrimage sense of, I want to be a better person, having been to these places. And I wish I could sometimes match the joy that I see of these African Christians.
And I'll say about 8 years ago, my mother-in-law, who might have been in her late 70s at the time, when she came back from visiting the Holy Land, and I said, how was it? And she said, it was a lot of walking.
My wife complains that everything in Israel is uphill.
Yeah.
Jerusalem, everything is uphill. And
uphill each way, right?
So
get in shape a little bit beforehand. Don't just think you're just going to
suggest that, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So no tour camels available for people?
When we go to, when we come down to the Red Sea and we come up the other side, we go into Wadi Rum, where movies like The Martian, Lawrence of Arabia, were all filmed in Wadi Rum. We ride about 45 minutes on camels down into Wadi Rum. I've got some great pictures of us riding camels.
So yeah,
and that is always
camel
for
experience.
$20. You're going to get this great ride that you'll never forget.
That sounds cool.
So
Great, love it. Well, Kevin, do you have your website pulled up?
I did. Did that not show up?
No, we haven't seen the spirit screen
Maybe
yet.
I have to remove the other one first.
Okay, so if I take that out,
And share the screen again.
do I need to reshare?
I can edit some of this stuff out while we're doing the management of our sites.
How's that?
There we go. It's pulling up right now. So that's the website right there, Bountiful
This is
Travel.
Bountiful Travel,
Mhm.
and it has got a variety of tours. We run a number of. You can get a chance to see just how many trips are there.
There might be a tour someday of where Stephen Pinecker walked. That might be a tour someday.
I sure hope not.
People might pay big money to go see his actual recording studio.
Definitely where the Mormon History Association event in Logan, Utah at Utah State, where Steve and I first met, that probably could be a holy mecca to somebody someday.
They might make pilgrimage to that, Gene.
That's right.
You too. All right. Well, I love it. I love all things about the Holy Land. I love these tours that people do. So there's information here. Some of these have been sold out, but of course, I see Casey Griffiths is involved in this. He's a good friend. Scroll down, seeing who. Let's see how many people I know here.
You got Hank Smith,
look
you got
at
John Hilton,
Yeah.
Dave Hadlock.
Yeah.
John, by the way, like I say, we were doing some
Yeah.
ones, and then I think my next one. Let's see if he's got it up. I've
Now,
got
did
one
John,
that I'm
by the
doing-
way, say to people, hey, I know Kevin Hinckley?
By the way, would.
Okay.
Yeah, I've traveled with him. And then I'm taking a group next October.
Okay.
Okay.
Well, that's great. So, well, Kevin, I just want to ask, just out of curiosity, what got you involved in doing something like this?
Actually, it's kind of a fortunate thing. I've been speaking at BYU Education Week for years, and I was speaking at Education Week, and I had somebody that knew Dave Hadlock that had said, "You'd be really good at that. We ought to set you up with Dave Hadlock." And so I called, and this was like 2000. I talked to Dave in 2010, 2011, something like that, and we started doing trips to the Caribbean and all that, and then, like I say, about the last 10 years, we've been doing to the Holy Land.
Wow. Love it. That's
so-
great. You're able to do that. Such a privileged thing you're able to do. It must make you feel just so just humbling just to be able to go and walk where Jesus walked and be able to do that frequently.
You know, the best part about those is actually teaching the classes. It's like sitting in the amphitheater in Ephesus, for instance, and teaching a class in Ephesus, or teaching a class in Corinth, or teaching a class in Petra, or something like that. Those are amazing experiences.
So while you're teaching a class, do you ever ask people to gather up some fishes and loaves for lunch and stuff like that?
We should do that. We were the amphitheater in Ephesus, and we decided we'd bust out some songs. So they got an impromptu Mormon Tabernacle Choir concert, and everybody in Ephesus stopped down in the amphitheater in the marketplace, and then they gave us a big rousing cheer when we got done.
That's right. I had somebody wonder, was it dried fish they ate, or was it sushi, or what was it that they had?
I'm telling you guys, if you go to Peter's Fish, that they serve you the white fish that they've caught right out of the Sea of Galilee, and it's a really tasty fish, but the whole thing is just deep fried. So you eat it the way that they would have eaten it back then. Very popular.
Great, love it.
All right, so we'll try to include some of the links that we've talked about today to Steve's show where he interviewed the prior guest, and Kevin's website. And so I hope everybody enjoyed it. I enjoyed it because it was, like I said, I don't remember my mother-in-law sharing very many photos of her visit.
Our tagline should be, as it is at every Passover, next year in Jerusalem.
Next year in Jerusalem. There you go.
Next year in Jerusalem.
All right. Well, thanks, Kevin, for your information, your pictures. Thanks, Steve, for coming on the show. I hope you had fun.
Yeah, I had fun today. And just because it's a dual collaboration, just remember, all the voices of the restoration will be heard here on Mormon Book Reviews.
That's right. And I'll say, everybody do the things, like and subscribe. Subscribe to Steve's channel if you haven't yet. And have a great rest of the 2025. Bye-bye.